Welcome to the Grief Dreams podcast, where we have conversations with guests about their life, loss, grief, and of course, grief dreams, which can be dreams of the deceased. If you want to know more about the topic and your host, please visit the website griefdreams.ca. To support the podcast, please go ahead and rate it. For additional ways to support the show, please see the episode show notes. Before I move on with the show, I would like to give a territory acknowledgement. Long before Canada was formed, the Stalo people were the original land stewards, and they have lived here since time immemorial. They continue to live in the unceded Stalo territory known to settlers as the Fraser Valley and Lower Fraser Canyon of British Columbia. I recognize and honor the contribution that Indigenous peoples have made and continue to make to our community and the topic of grief dreams. Welcome to the Grief Dreams podcast. Thank you for tuning in again. So this is the Grief Dream recap episode for 2025. In this podcast, I'll go over some of the dream conversations that I've had with the guests this last year. And we had a lot of different guests on with a lot of really interesting dreams and stories. And I'm always grateful for anyone who comes on here to share their experiences. I learn a lot, and hopefully you do too. And so we're just going to jump right into it. So the first clip comes from episode 235. Lindsay Whistle Fenton, who is an Emmy award-winning filmmaker, international speaker, and grief educator, talks about her grief dreams of her dog.
Oh, I've had so many dreams of Birch, but thankfully they've all been super positive. I don't remember when the first one I had was, but I've had many since then. And I actually had one last night where it's usually just very benign. Like she'll just be back in my life and she's just around again. I think I've had some where maybe she can talk, which is funny because I remember staring at her one time, when I was snuggling her in bed thinking, I had this moment where I was like, God, I wish you could talk. And then I quickly thought, I'm so glad you can't, because this is so much, this eye, communicating through the eyes and the emotions is so much more pure than language. And just with the pet loss being disenfranchised, I think that is truly something, if you haven't bonded with an animal, is hard to understand. I certainly didn't understand, is just the purity of the love and emotion, because you don't have the talking, you don't have the complexity that can be present in human relationships, where even when we love people, we say things or they say things and it gets muddy. It's just the pure, unadulterated love. And so I will have dreams of Birch where she is just back. Or last night was beautiful because she was here with my dog Ellie. And actually I think my brother's dogs were in it too, or some of them were, and just playing. And the one that really comes to mind because it was so tangible, it was very simple. It was just, I found her, I opened a drawer and I was like, oh my gosh, she never died. She was just hiding in this drawer. And I picked her up and she was so little, and I could feel her. And I woke up. She used to sit on my chest and I would put my hands on either of her sides and just, squeeze her as much as I could, because she's only 7 pounds. So I didn't want to totally smush her, but I could feel her ribs and her warmth and her soft little fur. And I heard the little snorts that she would make. And it was just so real. And so every time I've had a dream about her, at most it's just sort of like I said, a benign, oh, she's there or something. But some of them have just been like that, where it is like she is there. And then that's hard too, because then as nice as a dream is, you wake up and she's not.
Next on the podcast, we have episode 236, where I had on Erla Legault, who advocates for adult sibling grief peer support and co-wrote and illustrated the book Living with Sibling Grief, Imagining a Way Forward. And she wrote this with her sibling grief buddy, Monica Murphy. In the clip, she talks about her grief dreams of her sister and dad and her niece's grief dream. Take a listen.
I'm a very vivid dreamer, and I don't hold back when telling people dreams if they're interested. But Monica, she has had dreams, but we're two very different people. We're very similar in some ways, but we're very different. And it was dreams that really meant a lot to me. And I frankly didn't know the things. I didn't know what grief dreams was until I went to your talk. That was through hospice. It's funny because I was going through things. January 27th, 2018 is when I learned about them. It was so helpful because I guess because I had a dream 6 months after my dad died, and it brought me such comfort that, 38 years later or whatever, it still brings me comfort every time I think about it. So my dad had cancer. And so in the dream, him and I are sitting on mom and dad's love seat, and he's got a velour brown house coat. So you know how long ago that was. And I knew he was sick because he was a little bit stiff because the cancer was in his body. So he was kind of turned to me like this. And he just said, Erla, I'm fine. I'm okay. Because I just did not know about death. I didn't have any, because I was a weenie about it. I didn't really want to think about it. So that dream gave me comfort. Him coming to tell me that he was okay meant the world to me, and it still does. And then when I, went and heard you and Jade talk about grief dreams, I thought, yep, that's what I had. That's what it was. And since then, with Leanne, when I reached out to you, it was because I had a very, it was that spring, so a few months after Leanne died, and she came to me. It's so vivid. Her and I are on a Ferris wheel, and she's in a blue jacket of mine, bright blue jacket. She's wearing, because it's winter time, and she has her headband on, and she's got the coolest sunglasses on. And she says to me, how are your appointments coming along, Erla? And I never use that word appointments, because by training, she was a receptionist. She worked in admin. So I would never have used that word. But I took it from her to mean, how are you doing? What are you doing for yourself? So I just had a book beside my bed, and I just, every couple of days, I would just write down what I was doing for myself, not realizing that this was helping me. I wouldn't have said it was grief work at the time, but it was, making a conscious effort to say yes when somebody said, can I come over and visit? Going for a swim and, really relaxing. There was just so many things that I was doing at the time, like even doodling or writing. That all went into my appointments book. Yeah, again, Monica and I, we're very different in how, dreams happen for us, but it was important for me to talk about it in the book.
And so did you have many others, or was it just one of your sister?
Oh yeah. Like honestly, I'm a journaler or a writer, and I write down a lot. So it was funny because I was thinking, if I went through my journal, because what I usually do is, I just use a plain book, but then when I'll go through it and I'll go, oh well, I had a dream. I keep track of them, and I've had so many dreams. The one that I was thinking about the other day was 8 months after Leanne died. One of her wishes was to have her ashes go to Burriana Beach in Nerja, Spain, where she lived. So the first night we were there, I had this dream, and I'm saying to her, I came all this way and you're not here? Like I was choked. So that was very telling. That was, so dreams like that happened to me. Yeah. And yeah, it was just, that was what I was going through. Like, yeah, I really can't believe that we came all this way and you're not here, because Sarah and I went to Spain the first time together when Leanne had just moved there. So that was kind of neat. I had a niece a little while ago. She texted me and said, Auntie, I had a really good dream about Sarah. That's my niece who died 5 years ago, Leanne's only daughter. And my niece Morgan said, Sarah said in her dream she was so happy that we were all getting together as a family. And that to me is something really big, because this is my brother's daughter talking about, a dream that she had. And I just couldn't wait for us to talk about it. And, because when somebody dies, it is the elephant in the room if you don't talk about them. And so for Morgan to bring up that she had this dream that Sarah said, I'm so happy that you guys are getting together. It just was really yet another way to have a conversation and to be open about it.
Next, we have Felicia Cardinal, who came on episode 237, who manages an Indigenous clothing store in Chilliwack, British Columbia, called Section 35, and is originally from Saddle Lake Cree Nation. And so in the clip, we talk about her grief dreams of her mother and auntie.
I feel like I dream more about my mom. It's been a long time since I've had any dreams about my dad. I think my connection was a little bit stronger with her. It's always like the harder one for me, I think. But when I dream about her, it's always like very, almost torturous. It's like you're on the top of a school and you can see her down there and she's facing away, but it's her. She's got her long curly hair and her summer dresses you should always wear. And it's like this journey. It's a perilous issue trying to get down the building, and you're sliding down up this, grate, and then you're getting there. And as soon as I get to her, it's like, then you wake up. You don't really get to see her face. And I've had that dream so many times in the past. And, probably wasn't even that long ago where I have other renditions of it, but fairly similar. Like I never really get to be there, which is pretty awful. Up until recently, we lost our auntie, which was my mom's sister. They were very, very similar and very close. And I had a dream when I was with them both at my auntie's house, and we were all just sitting around a table and we're all just laughing. And it just felt so genuine. And I could finally see her face. So, like, that to me is like, what does that mean? Was she like happy to have her sister with her now? Like, is there peace there? Like, that's kind of something that stands out to me recently.
Next, we have episode 238. I had Julie Primo, who is the operations manager at Arch Hospice and a healing arts practitioner, Reiki teacher, and yoga instructor. And so in this clip, she talks about a grief dream of her mom.
The first dream that came in, my mom died March 16th of 2024. Her celebration of life was on her birthday, like June 18th. So you got to think, I had March, April, May, and now it's June. And it's the night before my mom's celebration of life. So we were celebrating on her birthday. And I went to bed that night and I was feeling like, since my mom had passed, I was feeling like this anxious, kind of like unsettled, like ungrounded, just like so much grief. You wear so much grief here. And I almost like couldn't get a breath in to me. And I went to bed that night and my mom came to me in a dream and she looked as vivid as you do now in my dream state, but she was like haloed in this yellow light, like all around her. And it was so beautiful. I couldn't necessarily hear what she was saying to me, but I could hear like and feel like I have goosebumps thinking of it. It was so like such a beautiful high vibration experience.
Next, we had episode 239. I had the chance to speak to two people. The first was Michael McKenzie, who has worked in developmental services supporting people with intellectual disabilities for more than 35 years. And Michael volunteers at Bereaved Families of Ontario in Toronto, where he facilitates peer grief groups for people with intellectual disabilities and another series for direct support workers who have experienced loss of those that they have supported. He was joined with Luke Lepas, who has co-facilitated the grief group with people who have intellectual disabilities. And so in this clip, we discussed the grief dreams they both have had. So Michael speaks first about his dreams of the deceased clients, and then Luke will talk about his dreams of his deceased grandparents and friend. And so let's first start off with Michael. Check it out.
I started to have dreams about the three of us, and we would have just conversations, nothing enlightening or anything like that, but just the three of us were then together. So for many, many years, because of that point of connection, I've really named them as I named them as my guardian angels. And so even sort of, we've talked about things in the dreams and just sort of passing the time, and it's just really comfortable.
Okay, next we have Luke speaking, and here is his clip.
When both of them passed, just but on different years, I once had these dreams. Like, one of the dreams was, when my grandfather from my dad's side passed away, after that, I had this dream that, because when he was skiing with me, because he was an athlete just like my dad and myself are. And we were skiing with each other on different ski hills. And when the time came, and then years later, after when he started developing illnesses and didn't ski anymore, he watched me from one of the ski lodges, just going downhill on all these different ski hills. Yeah, that's one of the dreams and about him. And another dream is, I also had these dreams that, I was swimming in the lake at my cottage, and he watched me from afar because he loved swimming as well. And he told me to keep up the good work and everything like that. And now I want to move on to my other grandfather, my mom's dad, who passed away just recently, like 5 years ago. My grandfather, my mom's dad, loved walks to the park. Mind you, my dad's father also loved walks to the park too. That's another dream I had about him. Oh, and I want to add another person. It was actually an old friend of mine from the school I went to before Brighton Launch. It was a special education school called Merle Levine Academy, now closed due to lack of students, unfortunately. Anyways, it was actually an old friend. Her name, yeah, unfortunately, this friend passed away at a really young age. Just not even, I don't think she was even 13 yet, but her name was Eden, Eden. She was an old schoolmate of mine. We played all different kinds of board games. We hung out at recess together. And I once had a dream about her. When I found out from all the teachers that she passed, that she passed away, I had this dream in my mind saying, "Hey, Luke, do you want to play some games with me and my big brother?" Because she had an older brother. Or do you want to play this game with me at recess? Or, you know.
Next, we have episode 240. I had the chance to speak with Marnie Thompson, who is the Director of Bereavement Services at Victoria Hospice and an executive member of the Canadian Grief Alliance. In this clip, we discuss her grief dreams in her clinical practice.
I was thinking about my own grief dreams, and I'm touching wood, fortunate at this time to not have a recent loss that's coming up for me. So I don't think I have my own grief dream story to share at this time. I'm sure I will somewhere in the future, and I'll be reaching out to you. But I can say for sure that dreams are really important in people's lives who are grieving. And, I think, again, it's that continuing bond connection. Like, we want to feel like there's a way in which we're still connected, in contact with our person or thing that we've lost. And so dreams are a big part of people's grief experience. And kind of as you were touching on early on when you were talking about it, Joshua, I feel really aware of, and I'm not a researcher like you are, but just anecdotally from my practice, kind of two things: how painful it is for people when they're not having dreams of their person they lost, and the kind of despair, frustration, sadness about that. And then how most often it's incredibly reassuring when they do come. Like, I wouldn't say universally positive, but almost. Like, usually when people are coming into their dreams, at least as I'm hearing as a grief counselor, people are making sense of those dreams in a way that is reassuring, is validating, kind of helps them to kind of carry on in the moment in their time of loss. So important. And then the other thing, it's kind of a question back for you that I wonder about, Joshua, and again, anecdotal, not research. But one of the things I notice as a clinician is that it seems to me that when grieving people are really intensely and desperately seeking that person to show up in their dreams or give them a sign, it doesn't happen. And when people kind of release their grip on, I want a dream, I want them to show up in my dream, or I need a sign, when they kind of loosen that expectation or wish, they start to come. And I don't know what that's about. I don't know if we're just too locked in and making the window too narrow, that it's hard for those to show up in our unconscious or in our waking life as signs. But it's something I really notice anecdotally, that and in particular early on in grief, when people are in a lot of pain and distress and really seeking that ongoing connection, it doesn't tend to be there. So I just wonder, in your research or your experience, Joshua, if you notice anything similar or different even.
Yeah, I've heard stories like that, even in our own research, like the research I've done. And what it could be is that people are dreaming of the deceased in a negative context when they're grieving so heavily. So it could be the mind's way of protecting them from that trauma to, like, it would just make it harder.
Interesting.
And so maybe it takes a little longer because that's when grief is maybe digested a little bit, and they can also have a dream that is kind of more comforting. I always ask people, like, if they're wanting, like, if they really want one, I always like to ask, what would you want? Like, what is it that you're really longing for? And if it is, I just want to make sure if they're spiritual, I just want to make sure they've crossed over. Well, can you ask anyone else if they've had any dreams of them? And they may have, right? And so those other people around you can also provide you that guidance to reassure you, and just know that the dreams will probably come at some point. Like, most people, if you're dreaming in a regular way, you're going to have it probably within the first year. I think some like studies, 75 or 80% of people are having within that time frame. And so, but if you're worried, if you want it sooner than later, just ask people around, because one of them probably have had a dream, and that could comfort you to say, oh, okay, yeah. One of the things I heard is that when people don't get dreams, they'll rush and then they'll go to a medium to try to figure out where they are. And I always like to tell people, like, there's no like association that like tests these people. And so you're, putting your mental state in someone else's hands, that it's a monetary business for the most part. And so you have to really go with a critical eye. But if you're longing for that, you might get something that's going to cause you distress. Because I've heard people go and have negative moments with someone like that, where they have to pay more, or they say the deceased is trapped, or there's so many things that can happen. Then you'll like become a victim of them just, taking advantage of you. But really what it stems from is they want a dream, they didn't have it. And so I kind of like try to reassure people that it's going to come in time. Like mine came 3 months after my dad died. And other people that I've heard when there is this delay, it is they haven't really acknowledged the loss. Like they avoid going to, there's avoidance still being a part of it. So they'll not,
Yeah.
there's no interest to go to, let's say, the cemetery because they'll make it too real for them. But I've also heard when they did go, the dreams started happening. And so I feel avoidance is part of it, but also their dream recall in general. And so it's one of the things we found in the research is that when you dream more in general, you're more likely to capture these dreams of the deceased too. So a lot of times people just don't dream a lot. And so, especially in our culture that minimizes dreams, we may remember 1 or 2 a week. And so you'll have a less likely chance of actually remembering those dreams of the deceased because you're not remembering your dreams that often, but you're probably dreaming about them. I think that's the wild thing for me is that people are probably dreaming of the deceased a lot more than they're actually remembering it. And so it's like, why do we remember certain ones over others? Like, what do those moments mean? And how can we make sense of the ones we do remember? And so it's a really fascinating and interesting field. But yeah, it's just like that need and that rush to try to get answers sooner. But there's different ways to sort of, I think, work with that, especially so like asking other people about their dreams is just a common way. And then, yeah, you may feel jealous that they've had it and you haven't, but now you've answered that question. But now you can then work on the jealousy part. And then you can also sort of hear some of the research to let you realize that it's not you. And a lot of times people will take it on like, oh, I've done something wrong, or they have guilt or shame. And that's why I'm not getting a dream. And I always like to reassure people that's not the case. Like I've seen enough to know that that's not really the reason for that. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting question though, about how people can try to rush the process.
I've learned so much. I'm so glad I asked you, Joshua. I've got probably 3 things I'm going to take into my clinical practice thanks to your response. Yeah, it's a tricky thing, right? People really want that connection and want to rush it. And I think in particular early on when they're in a lot of distress. And one of the things that you said that's really staying with me is what if it's self-protective? What if the brain is kind of holding that out because right now our thoughts and memories of the person who's died are really painful.
You see that a lot, actually. So 40% just in the sample that we've done had negative dreams of the deceased, and they tend to happen earlier on. Versus most people do tend to have positive dreams also, but there's still that 40% of people who are having these dreams that they're negative in nature. And so I think they would happen more openly in the beginning of loss, but also you may know more than this than me. For prolonged grief, I would think people were having more negative dreams of the deceased, if anything, because I think those positive dreams help shift people in a different light.
Yeah. And in particular around prolonged grief and dreams is avoidance. What the other piece that really stayed with me that you were sharing is around like, where are people in terms of digesting or integrating the loss? And I think in prolonged grief or disordered grief, there's a lot of avoidance of those things, those cues in the world that are kind of compelling us to take in that it's happened. Typically in prolonged grief, we really are keeping out the reality in all kinds of ways. And so that really stuck with me about what you said.
Okay, that is all the episodes. So we had 6 episodes this year. I really enjoyed all the conversations. So if you haven't listened to them all, feel free to go back and listen to those. Once again, I really enjoy doing this podcast, and I really appreciate that you continue to listen and continue to share it. I had many really interesting moments and stories this last year of people commenting that they do listen to this and have shared it with people, and it always warms my heart. And I can't wait for the next guests that are going to be coming on this year. We have some really good ones, and I hope you have a great year.